What is PTSD for me? Everyone has different symptoms. Everyone is their own person, so they experience things in a different way. PTSD for me is the feeling I get whenever I see a certain car, or I smell a certain smell, or I hear a certain voice, and thinking, it's him, and he's come for me, and my time is up. PTSD is for me is like having someone put a VR headset over my eyes when I'm having a flashback. But unlike the VR headsets, I can't just take it off. I have to live through it over and over and over again until it finally stops. PTSD for me is feeling unsafe at night and feeling like at any time my ex could come crashing through the window and kill me. PTSD for me is the feeling of hating physical contact. It's the fear of someone's gonna hurt me, that when I'm being hugged, it doesn't feel right. When I'm being hugged, a lot of times it feels like I'm trapped and that I can't escape. PTSD for me is hearing, you're stupid, you're worthless, you're ugly, look at you, everyone would be better off without you, in my head, constantly. It barely ever stops. And it only gets worse at night. PTSD for me is staying up until early morning hours because I don't feel safe at night. And my brain becomes more active at night. And that's when the suicidal thoughts really start to come in. That's when I feel like I'm my most worthless, is at night. That's when I feel the most powerless, is at night. PTSD for me is hearing, it will get better. You will get over it. It's just depression. It's just in your head. But the sad part is there's no cure for PTSD. I will never be cured from this disease. Having PTSD is hearing things like, it's not that bad. You're just making it up. But in reality, it's a real disease. And it doesn't go away with medication. Or a lot of times, not even time will heal it. It is the constant fear that will captivate you almost every single day of your life. PTSD for me is knowing that I'm not going to have the American dream lifestyle. I'm not going to have a big house with kids and a husband that loves me or a wife that loves me. It's the fear and the realization that I will always be alone. Because loving someone with a disability is harder than loving someone without one. Especially when you have traumas like me. PTSD for me is having my back to a wall. Always, in public, and even in houses, and sometimes even in my own house, because that's where I feel safest. Because I can't have someone come up behind me and put a knife to my throat if my back's already against a wall. PTSD for me is when I'm in public, sitting down at a restaurant, I look at all the exits. And I make sure I'm close to one, in case I have to run. PTSD for me is having to utilize a dog who saves my life every day. And who never says it's in my head. He never judges my symptoms. He never judges my disability. He loves me for me. And he helps get me out of those flashbacks, and he helps it when I'm starting to feel self-loathing. He helps with the anxiety attacks. He helps with a lot of things. PTSD for me is planning out my own funeral, planning out my suicide, planning out suicide notes, planning out a will, and just wondering who will really miss me, who will go to the funeral, and what will become of my dog. Now, unlike someone that has suicidal intentions, I am suicidal. I don't have suicidal intentions. So what does that mean? That means that I feel suicidal a lot. And I think about suicide a lot. Probably 3 times every day. Sometimes it could be more, sometimes very rarely is it less. So that means I could be having the best day ever, and then all of a sudden that little voice inside my head tells me, you're worthless. Kill yourself. Or, that person doesn't like you. You'd be better off dead for them. And it's all of a sudden, you're happy, and then all of a sudden happiness drains from your body. And then it's not a good thing. PTSD for me is knowing that I will always be alone in this fight. That no one will ever understand. And no one wants to. And that's okay with me. But in case I upload this, just know, don't ever tell someone with PTSD that it's just depression. It's not. They went through something traumatic. And they need your support. So don't tell them it's all in your head. You're faking it. Take pills. Forget about it. Move on. Because, unlike you, we can't just move on. We would love to, but we're stuck. So, that's all. Bye.